Basilio Fo is the bioengineer who unleashes horrors on the population of Terra during the Age of Strife. To show off his own genius, he was not a madman by his own estimation, but an artist, and he lives through to the time of the heresy. But before then he meets the War Master Horus, Lupercal. What horrors did Foe unleash during the Age of Strife? What has he perfected of the art form? Can one of his beasts hold up to a Primarch? And what does Foe think of the master of mankind's creations, the Astartes? Friends, let's find out, and welcome to another 40k video. Before he turns heel on the Emperor, Horus finds a call for aid from Captain Sejanus, and as they meet, the captain informs Horus what they face. First, Sejanus tells Horus of the heavy losses amongst the lunar wolves. He explains that the 400 life signs of Foe's people are not accurate, as the life signs are blended into several beings, and Sejanus shows Horus what they face on the Pict capture. Biomech, explains Sejanus. Biomechanical constructs, engineered to kill, some as small as a man's hands, others larger than a dropship. Engineered, gene-edited, spliced, reworked from human stock. Horus pulled more images to the front and stared at them. Each one showed a new horror, as if he were flicking through a picked book of a madman's nightmares. Everything you see was once human, said Sejanus. There's barely anything I recognise as remotely human, said Horus, quietly. Quite, but bioscans are precise. Everything comes at us is genetically human, woven from this colony's original human stock. Some combine the genes of more than one source. Multiple others are worked from a single origin gene donor. All are reinforced and weaponized with cybernetics, hence the misleading life scans. Sejanus nodded. We're facing thousands of individual biomech hostiles, potentially over 100,000. Every single one of them is capable of killing a fully armed legionary, but they are all derived from the same 400 human originals. He looked at Horus. My wolves have given their names, Lord. I've tried to discourage it. Cyberberserkers, biome cannibals, misbegots. They are feral horrors. The least of them makes the green skins seem mild. The worst is, there is no insane reason for any of them. Sejanus summoned up more images. A pallid thing like a starfish, the limbs, human arms, a beaked mouth at the centre. A thorn snake as thick as a tree trunk, formed from translucent intestine, something made entirely of weeping eyes. Here 4 thick human legs bearing a sack that opened in a gaping orifice that was a mouth within a mouth within a mouth. Glistening things covered in blisters and horns, pulsing things festooned with barbs, things made of interlocked hands that cupped drooling mouths and glaring pupils, things sheathed in fingernail horn, their exposed flanks stippled with coarse black hair and open sores. These are the constructs Foe has made, said Sejanus. Horus glanced at him. In the Dark Age, he said, before old night fell, there was a man called Foe, Basilio Fo, a bioengineer, a self-proclaimed worker of obscenity. The data is very incomplete. It would be, remarked Sejanus. The age of technology ended 5 millennia past. Horus nodded. The creature called Foe, mentioned in the annals, was a monster, even by the standards of that godless age. Hunted for his blasphemous work, he fled Terra during the stellar exodus. He was presumed lost, long dead. He looked at Sejanus. But given his gift and skill set, it may be he has survived. Endured is perhaps a better word. Sejanus, we may have found the hidden bastion of one of history's foulest creatures. So they get into conflict with the beasts of Foe. It had no form, yet it had all forms. It was a vast bulk, a slab of flesh reinforced with a rib cage that would have made the frame of a generous dwelling hall. Yet it was also a writhing forest of limbs, of clawing hands, of amputee stumps that wedged and stabilized its weight. It was eyes wide and weeping, clustered like egg sacs. It was mouths, some opening in its central mass, some lunging forward on whip-spined necks, every gullet specialised and distinct. One to snap, one to bite, one to grind, one to sever, one to grasp and hold as others fed. He had immense speed, and when fire from a distance does not hurt it, they're getting close. The misbegot reared up, its titanic form supported by straining appendages, and its gnarled, trans-skeletal frame. Horus stood his ground, his war blade gleamed in his armoured fist. "Go back to hell," he whispered. And straight from that, we don't get much more description. We cut to Foe speaking with Horus. "You slew it?" asked Foe. Horus says he dismantled the creature till he killed the part of it could not live without. Foe says he waited for someone like Horus. Lupercal says Foe's creations are abominations. Basilio then explains he left Terra because of the rise of the Emperor. Even then, early days, but I could see what he would become. Your father, I mean. I knew what future awaited a man who dreamed the dreams he did. Though it took decades or centuries or millennia, I knew he would not be denied. I wanted no part of that. I wanted to be as far away as possible. Why? Asked Horus. His dream is unthinkable, yet he has the power to make it real. I see he has begun to now. You have reached the stars. Yes, bearing his message, his hope to... Hope? Foe shook his head sadly. Yes, naturally, he would tell his children that. He always made things sound so optimistic. A glorious and endless future. But of course you wouldn't understand. I don't, said Horus, rising. You are a maker of abominations, a creature of the most obscene things I have ever beheld. I presume a thing as transgressive in mind as yours would see only horror in the splendour of his ambition, and fear the justice he would mete out upon you for your crimes against the human form. Oh God, no, cried Foe in surprise. He hesitated. Do they still speak of God and Terror? Do they still believe? I suppose not. They wouldn't have to now. Anyway, you're wrong. I don't fear his justice. You say I've made abominations. Look what he has made. What do you mean? Asked Horus. I mean you and beings like you. You think I've made monsters in my wildest deliriums? I cannot have designed monsters like you. I practice simple and ingenious arts of genetics and anatomy. I tinker and edit to make puzzles and delights and curious wonders, things to make us think and ponder the nature of our being and our place in the scheme of life. He looked at Horus. I do not make things that will burn the galaxy down. I do not make beings that will doom our species and lead it into an endless frenzy of war. You are the most abominable thing I have ever seen. Grotesque, sickening, misbegotten. I could not hope to kill you all, but to abort just one before it reached potential. Well, that would have been some solace. Foe got up and brushed down his clothes. I'd like to die now, he said. I don't want to live in a cosmos where things like you are loose. After their chat, Horus says to Sejanus, he will be taken to our father for his crimes. He says then that this is an age of enlightenment, and the Astartes are messengers of hope. Years later, during the heresy, Foe and ancient terror, in those final days of the fall, Foe heard the thunder approaching through the stout walls of his Hubelette cell in the depths of the imperial palace, and despite the madness that had by then consumed him, he knew he'd been right all along, not to submit to hope. I do like that there's a certain honesty with Foe in what he thinks he is and what he tells to other people. It seems his tinkering's on a reasonably small scale, where the ambition of the Emperor was to create warriors to conquer the galaxy. So now, friends, I turn things over to you. What can Foe accomplish if he lives into M40? Could he have made more creative Primax than the Emperor if he had that knowledge? Comment down below.